Staying safe online, criminal legal risks in the Jay Slater community. With reports of a recent arrest involving a creator from the Jay Slater community, it's crucial to discuss how those engaging in online discussions can protect themselves from potential legal consequences. I've already covered civil issues like defamation, slander, and libel in another video. Check the description for the link if you missed it. In today's digital world, social media and messaging platforms make it easy for online interactions to spiral into harassment, malicious communication, or even criminal threats. The Jay Slater community is no exception. As laws evolve to tackle online abuse, those crossing the line can face serious legal action. This video will break down the key criminal laws on online threats, malicious communication, and harassment, what they mean, how they apply, and how to stay on the right side of the law. Let's get into it. Firstly, as I believe the recent police involvement and subsequent criminal investigation is being based around online threats. Online threats, Offenses Against the Person Act. 1861, Malicious Communications Act, 1988, and Online Safety Act, 2023. Threats made online can have severe consequences, whether they involve physical violence, harm to reputation, or inciting others to attack someone. These offenses can be prosecuted under several laws. Key elements of online threats: a direct or implied threat of violence, harm, or intimidation. The threat is communicated via social media, messaging apps, forums, or emails. The sender intends or should reasonably know the message will cause fear or distress. Relevant laws and penalties: serious threats, e.g., threats to kill. Offenses Against the Person Act. 1861, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Lesser threats, e.g., threats of violence, blackmail, or coercion. Malicious Communications Act. 1988, punishable by up to 2 years in prison. Encouraging or inciting violence online. Serious Crime Act 2007 can lead to several years in prison. Example: posting threats of harm on social media, sending a direct message saying, "I know where you live, you're dead," inciting violence by urging followers to attack someone. Even if the sender claims the message was a joke or exaggeration, if it causes genuine fear, it can be prosecuted. After looking closer at this, we've seen that no matter how heated things get in debate, it's important to stop short and walk away prior to threats being made in order to protect yourself from possible criminal charges. Next, we'll discuss malicious communications. Malicious Communications Act 1988, Communications Act 2003, and Online Safety Act 2023, Section 179. Malicious communication covers sending or causing to be sent offensive, threatening, or false messages intended to cause harm, distress, or anxiety. Key elements: the message is sent directly, e.g., email, text, private message, or indirectly, e.g., social media posts, comments, or updates targeting someone. It contains threats, false information, or grossly offensive language. The intent is to cause distress or anxiety. Online Safety Act 2023, Section 179. False communications offense. Criminalizes knowingly sending or causing false communications that intend to cause harm, distress, or emotional upset. Covers misleading or manipulated content that creates a serious risk of harm. Penalty: up to 6 months in prison and/or a fine. Penalties for malicious communication. Under the Malicious Communications Act, 1988, up to 2 years in prison and/or a fine. Under the Communications Act, 2003, up to 6 months in prison and/or a fine. Under Section 179 of the Online Safety Act, 2023, up to 6 months in prison and/or a fine. Example: sending repeated abusive messages, posting harmful false claims on social media, knowing they will cause distress, using social media to provoke harassment, even without directly messaging the victim. Even if the original sender doesn't message the victim directly, they can still be held accountable for causing the message to be sent. When it comes to criminal legislation, the key factor, much like in defamation cases, is that the communication must be false. However, a key difference between defamation, a civil matter, and criminal cases lies in the burden of proof. In UK defamation law, the plaintiff doesn't need to prove the statement is false. The defendant must prove it's true. In criminal cases, however, the burden falls on the prosecution, typically the Crown Prosecution Service, to prove both that the statement is false and that the defendant knew it was false. The implication? Many people throw accusations online, some true, some not. But when someone knowingly spreads falsehoods as fact, and this can be proven, they could face criminal prosecution. How can it be proven that someone knew their communication was false before sending it? Simple, if they had access to information contradicting their claim. For example, if they visited an adult dating site where all profiles shown were clearly 21 plus, they couldn't truthfully accuse someone of using it to exploit vulnerable young teens, commonly defined as 13 to 15-year-olds. Likewise, if they took a screenshot from a 2017 dated newsletter to suggest a school trip happened recently, it would be easy to prove they knowingly spread false information. The key takeaway: stick to facts. Manipulating evidence or taking things out of context could land you in legal trouble for false communication. Finally, we have online harassment, Protection from Harassment Act, 1997. Harassment is persistent, unwanted behavior that causes distress, alarm, or fear. The law applies to cyberstalking, doxing, coordinated abuse, and persistent, unwanted messages. Key elements of online harassment: a course of conduct, at least 2 incidents. The behavior causes alarm, distress, or intimidation to a reasonable person. The perpetrator knows or ought to know their behavior is harassment. How online harassment can occur: repeated abusive messages via social media, email, or forums. Doxing, publishing private details to encourage harassment. False accusations, smear campaigns, or reputation attacks. Encouraging others to harass someone, e.g., directing followers to target someone. Creating fake accounts or impersonating someone to manipulate or humiliate them. Key points to note: private details refer to information not already in the public domain, and for disclosure to be criminal, it must be intended to cause harassment. As for unwanted behavior, harassment cannot be claimed if someone is simply responding after being named, referenced, or tagged. Likewise, general participation in a Facebook group or YouTube channel, where participation is invited, is unlikely to qualify as harassment. Penalties for online harassment: standard harassment, up to 6 months in prison and/or a fine. Harassment involving fear of violence, up to 10 years in prison. Example: a person repeatedly posts defamatory content about someone, tags them in offensive comments, and encourages others to target them. Someone sends threatening DMS despite being blocked or asked to stop. An individual leaks someone's private details online, leading to widespread abuse. Legal defenses and freedom of speech. While laws protect individuals from harm, they must be balanced with freedom of expression. Defenses may include lack of intent: the accused didn't mean to cause distress. Reasonable conduct: the messages were justified, e.g., making a complaint. Truthful communication: if the message was factual and not intended to be malicious. However, freedom of speech does not protect harassment, threats, or malicious falsehoods. Conclusion: the impact of these laws, online threats, malicious communications, and harassment are serious offenses with legal consequences. The rise of digital communication means what we say online carries real-world legal risks. Repeated unwanted messages, offensive posts, or threats can all lead to prosecution. The key takeaway? Think before you type. Online actions can have severe consequences, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. If you're ever on the receiving end of such behavior, report it to law enforcement and seek legal advice. I hope this video has been useful. As always, I welcome any comments below to discuss this topic further.